So Meadow Pollack is her last name can mean Polish Jew, but it can also be a fish. Okay, and one of the symbols for Jesus Christ, the Messiah, is a fish, Messiah. So, and I remember this Muslims telling me, a fish is fuck you Christians put up a fish for and call it your Christianity. It's a symbol for Christianity. Well, guess what? Us Muslims, we're gonna put up a shark because there's no God but Allah. We're the shark. We're gonna eat the fish, and so. But you know what? You know who really is courageous and who really has the balls? The shark doesn't have any balls for eating the fish. That's easy, and he's enjoying a meal. Okay, if a fish voluntarily makes itself a meal for the shark, or like the Jade rabbit, her middle name Jade, and her zodiac, Chinese zodiac being the rabbit, and the Jade Emperor making the Jade Rabbit, putting it on the moon with immortality, and then Meadow meaning Leah, or Leah meaning Meadow, and Leah being the moon in the Old Testament, Joseph's dream. The Jade Emperor, it's not a coincidence, man. It might sound silly, but the Jade Emperor created Valentine's Day in China, okay? 7-7, okay? And 7 meant something. I can't remember what it meant, but 7 was a very... July was an extremely important month. And in fact, July 14th is like the biggest feast of anniversary of in fact, actually, one of the people that die on July 14th, it's a feast of Saint Rosalia. She died, and it was terrible. She had 3 names of a divinity, and Gandhi visited the church that JFK visited, and these coincidences started happening, and she wanted to be a therapist, and there's this fund for her to be a therapist. And I was just reading, one of the symbols for Saint Philomena is a slit throat, and so I'm trying to find out the place she's buried at. At Our Lady of Lourdes cemeteries, where the wake is at Our Lady of Lourdes place, and that had a coincidence with somebody else's birthday, February 11th, which is National Japan Day, Shinto Day, where the first Japanese emperor was crowned on February 11th. And Shinto and the Virgin Mary, they go together really well, because in Shinto they already have a tomb for Jesus, and so they wouldn't have any problem with the rosary. And there were Japanese people that survived the atomic blast, and everything around them was incinerated. And they said, we were praying the rosary, and we were listening to the message of Fatima. It was the miracle of Mary. And the Virgin Mary, on October 13, 1917, she promised there's going to be a miracle for all who show up at the COVID area, Fatima, Portugal, 1917, October 13th. And on that day, the atheists that showed up to mock the event, and they wanted the crowd to kill the children, when they showed up and the crowd, nothing happens. Those same atheists were writing in the newspaper, I couldn't believe my eyes. The sun was dancing in the sky for like 12 minutes and throwing off all kinds of weird colors, and then it plunged down on us. And that actually brought about the fall of communism in Portugal. And Mary told about the coming of World War II and the rise of communism in Russia, the spread of communism throughout the world, asking the Pope to consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart. Okay, there's currently a war with Russia that is very concerning, that people might wonder if it's going to go nuclear, okay? Don't act like that's not something connected to the Fatima message, okay? And Meadow Pollack is very connected to the Fatima message, because I know her because of the Fatima message, okay? Because I live here because of the Fatima message. I met Leah because of the Fatima message. I knew about that Parkland and JFK stuff because I live here, because my dad kidnapped me and he took me to Fatima, Portugal, after my mother won custody of us, and he tried to raise us there right at Fatima, Portugal. And it stuck with me. Like, that's what caused me to convert, because I was very anti-communist. That's what drove me to this guy. And this guy, if he didn't ally himself with Hitler, Meadow Pollack knows him. They know each other personally, okay? He a big fan of Meadow. He was married to Rachel. Meadow realizes this guy was actually prefigured by Jacob in the Old Testament, because the thing is, he was a contender with God. He was a street fighter. He was a sword dueler. He was somebody that, he was like the trump card. He was somebody that he made things happen, that there were always signs that followed him. He had no government experience. He was kicked out of school for stabbing people. There was a dark side to him, but he was accomplishing a lot of good things from his dark side. And Jacob accomplished a lot of good things from his dark side, and from fighting and doing bad things and stuff like that. But so he took over a first world cradle of democracy, marching on Rome. The country is half communist. the Soviets and the communists are worse than the freaking Nazis, and everyone is freaking terrified of these people. And the communists are the reason the Germans were so cruel to the Jews, because there were so many Jewish ties to the Bolsheviks that, that's why that happened. But Mussolini put prayer back into schools, okay? Mussolini had a Jewish lover for 20 years who helped inspire he loved Jews very much, actually, not ever telling them to convert to Judaism, because he thought it's really cool to keep your Hebrew identity, and they were very good influences in the fascist party, because fascism comes from Judaism, okay? The patriotism, the symbolisms, the Mussolini created an independent Vatican City state, which the church calls itself the New Israel, okay? And Mussolini means Jacob. Jacob became Israel, and Mussolini took over the Solomonic dynasty, the Davidic kingdom in Ethiopia, occupying the Solomonic dynasty. Okay, and after that, Mussolini was more fervent about creating Israel in Palestine than the Jews of his time. He talked to the Jews in America. I need financial support from the Jews so I can go use my military to go create Palestine for the Jews, because he dreamed of that, because that would have made him almost like a type of Messiah to create the Holy Land. But the thing is, the Jews at that time, there was no Holocaust. They didn't want to move to Palestine, and they were probably living someplace enjoying a lot of luxuries and better life than they would have in the Middle East or something. I don't know, but they did not want to support him financially, and they didn't want to live there. And so maybe there were some other reasons they didn't like the idea. But to say that he's anti-Semitic is really stupid, because for a Roman Catholic leader who became the leader for he took over a first world cradle of democracy without anybody voting for him, without any government experience, and the prime minister called for a state of siege. I need the military and I need the police to stop the black shirt fascist march on Rome, and the police and the military could have easily done that. And they told him to step down. We want Mussolini to illegally, with no one voting for him. This is a cradle of democracy, okay? This would be like America saying, Joe Biden steps down and somebody with no freaking government experience whatsoever, and the youngest prime minister in Italian history, you get to just be prime minister overnight, and then you get to control the government, you get to control the everything so that you become a dictator and you unravel democracy. And, it pissed somebody off enough that a woman came up to him and shot him point blank in the face on Capitoline Hill, where the Capitoline wolf breastfed the twins who founded Rome. She shot him point blank in the head, and he went about his life the next day with a Band-Aid over his nostrils. The bullet, went through his nostril, and he survived. And people wondered, maybe he's the Antichrist, because the beast of the apocalypse is supposed to reign from the city of the Seven Hills, okay? And Mussolini's headquarters was in the city of the Seven Hills, and he had a head wound, and he survived 5 assassination attempts and a poison that didn't affect him. And the firing squad, he said, I'm going to be back if you kill me now, I will return to head a greater nation in need of a leader, and you will feel the arm. And that is the quote that is often pictured next to Donald Trump. So I saw Trump on Andrew Pollack's shirt, and Andrew has Mussolini's middle name, okay? And it means manly, okay? And so... he did so many amazing things. He's the reason St. Francis of Assisi is patron saint of Italy. That actually amazes me, because Italy has all these educated people that could be proud. They could be proud of. They have all these popes, and the most saints come from Italy. And he's choosing this man who loves poverty, who thinks the priesthood is too pompous, that when someone asks him to be a priest, he says, I don't want to. That too much to be proud of and too much pomp and all that. I want to wear a beggar's robe. I want to be barefoot. And he stripped down naked in public to say, I am naked, following the naked Christ. And the bishop and all these holy people and women are watching this naked guy in a time that is less acceptable than nowadays. And he's crazy. But, they wondered, maybe he is actually doing something crazy that's inspired by God. And St. Francis of Assisi would run up to lepers, knowing he could get leprosy, and he would kiss them, and he would hug them. He would live in leper colonies, and by choice, okay? He intentionally, he saw treasures in those lepers, okay? And his best friend was a female, Clara, okay? And Clara, his relationship with Clara was a little different than you would see from like a founder of a religion with another nun. It resembled more like I don't know, like it was more romantic, okay, and so and he was always talking about wooing lady poverty, and brother sun and sister moon were like they were entities that could hear him. He would sing songs and canticles to them. Okay, very unusual because it sounds almost like a pagan thing. But he would especially talk about Sister Moon. He'd get excited about Sister Moon like a werewolf, a wolf howling at the moon or something. And he would ring the bell at nighttime and wake everybody up. And like they're like, "What's the issue?" You've got to check out Sister Moon. She's so amazing. She's so brilliant to behold and so stunning and such a mystery. And so yeah, she loved to gaze at the moon, and that is what I loved. I love gazing at the moon. I salute the moon. I do the fascist salute to the moon because Mussolini means Jacob. Jacob is the sun. He hung upside down with Clara Patachi. She shielded him from bullets. Clara is the name of the best friend of Saint Francis, and she hangs upside down with him. And but her title mistress can mean woman in position of authority. Mistress is one of the definitions of Leah. So there's multiple definitions. So who knows? There's all kind. So his other wife is Rachel, and it's very interesting. Andrew Jackson and Benito Mussolini and Jacob, what they did to get with freaking Rachel, they made huge sacrifices. Jacob made himself a slave for 14 years. His only pay is Rachel. Andrew Jackson challenges the guy to a draw that puts a bullet so close to his heart he can't get surgery and has to stay the rest of his life. Benito Mussolini and Rachel kept turning down his wedding proposals, so he caught Rachel dancing with her boyfriend, and he snatched her out of her boyfriend's arms and dragged her to a cab, and they drove to her mother's house. And her mother said, you cannot do this, Benito. I'm calling the cops the next time you do this. And he said, right. And he left the room. He returned pointing the gun at her mother and said, there are 6 bullets in this revolver, and I'm putting one in Rachel and putting the rest in myself. If she doesn't agree to marry me right now, okay? So essentially he's going to try to take her to hell with him if she does not marry him because he's sick of this shit. That's how important it is to him that, it meant everything to him. And it's very interesting because he had a lot of good-looking girls screaming over him like it was Beatlemania because he had little girls who were receiving First Holy Communion saying instead of receiving Jesus in Holy Communion, they dream about receiving Mussolini. So, I mean, it's interesting he wanted Rachel so bad because she wasn't actually attractive. She wasn't a very attractive woman, but she was extremely important. And I wonder how he knew that, but she knew him anyway. So he's pointing the gun at her mother, and she said, well, mother, I've loved Benito since I was 7 years old. I just didn't want him as a husband, I wanted somebody who's like, he didn't seem like husband material, but, I think this is what I needed to push me to the brink, okay? And so she doesn't whitewash him. He did some bad things, but, sometimes a guy that does bad things, he actually accomplished the greater good. By doing that, Rachel Mussolini wrote 2 books about this guy with the information I needed. Rachel Mussolini has my birthday, April 11th, and her name means you, okay? Female lamb or you, sheep, or it sounds like Y-O-U. She's got my birthday. She thinks just like me. It seems like, I'd love to meet that woman. I'm amazed. Because when I read her books, it's like you're reading the Bible and the Holy Spirit's entering you or something. It's like you're reading what you're reading, but there's like some other entity that's speaking to you at the same time. So you're picking up messages. She's just a really freaking amazing person. Anyway, but what he did was illegal. I mean, he pulled a gun on a woman and made a woman marry him, by the threat of killing her and himself. And yet that was like an extremely important thing for him to do because Rachel realized that she wrote those books. This is why she didn't write those books until 1974. And she said, you know why? Because I know he did some very bad things, but I am so pissed at the Vatican. They denied him a freaking Catholic burial when he exalted that Vatican more than anyone. He taught what the Pope was teaching in a country that was abandoning what the teachings of the Vatican. He was doing everything he could to serve the Vatican, give them their independent state, and raise that flag higher than possibly anybody. he worked miracles for the Vatican, and now they're saying the guy that created us, gave us our own country, doesn't even get to have a freaking Catholic burial. Rachel said, I've never wanted to throw a bomb at anyone more than the freaking Vatican, because then the Pope says I can't meet with Rachel Mussolini because her last name would make it bad for politics. And she says, I'm a devout Catholic, but I really want to bomb the Vatican now because it really made her blood boil. But she said the fact that Mussolini was with Clara Petacci made her hate Clara Petacci for a while. And then when she saw Clara Petacci, when she saw her weeping, when people are saying you're going to keep hanging out with this guy everyone hates, you're going to die, she was weeping and saying, I'm ready to die for Benito. I love him. She realized this is I can't be with Benito and be there with him when he die with him because I have responsibilities and children and stuff. He has a true friend. He cannot promise her reward in the next life. It's not going to give her a good reputation dying with Benito, who's a hated man. And she's doing this totally out of love because she saw something in this man. She wants to be with him at his last moments, okay? So he's got a true friend when everybody hates him. Mother Teresa of Calcutta would not be standing by his side to die with him when he is this kind of a leper, So, so you never know. God might really admire that, but that was a bit of sidetrack. But this has a lot to do with Meadow, okay? I call her sometimes Meadow Mussolini because I call everybody of the dead Kennedy party, okay, who we are all one body in the contenders with God, okay? Contenders with God who try to fight with God and win. Fight with God for noble reasons and noble chivalrous reasons to end suffering and to change the destiny. Save Nineveh, save Babylon. God said Nineveh is going to be destroyed. Nineveh was not destroyed. Babylon is said to be destroyed. Doesn't have to be destroyed. And then Cyrus the Great, he could have been the Antichrist. He's a polytheist that the Jews are calling the Messiah. No, he's the anointed one. So the Antichrist can be like Cyrus, the anointed one, a true Messiah and a polytheist. At the same time, the woman that rides the beast can be Beauty and the Beast. So let's save Nineveh. Let's save Babylon. That is the message from Meadow. God bless.